Hey, this is Dave Scatchard, 14-year NHL pro and founder of All-Star Coaching, and this is the game plan.
Dave Scatchard, thank you so much for joining us on the game plan today.
Yeah, thanks, Jay and Tim. Appreciate it, and nice to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to talk to you about All-Star Coaching and some of the amazing work that you've been doing since your 14 years in the NHL. Let's chat a little bit about your transition, out of hockey. I know a lot of folks, they start thinking about what they want to do towards sort of their end of their career. I know you had a little bit of a unique situation. During your playing career, were there times that you were thinking about what it is that you wanted to do? And if so, what was that?
Well, I love learning. And when I was younger, I had a photographic memory. So school was really easy for me. And, I graduated early and I was always interested in business, psychology, that kind of stuff. So I had a lot of options, and I got into actually real estate investing just kind of naturally as I was playing. And I kept buying unique properties each place I played. So that's good when everything's working. But after my fifth concussion and this crazy near-death experience, which we'll talk about one day, I'm not going to talk about it today, but when I was done, and I saw God, all that. When I came back to Earth, and when I was living in this hell for 3 years, that was my life. I was regretting my decision on coming back here every single day. And, there's no context to it, so I can't really get totally into it. But, here's my situation. I was 3 years at the Mayo Clinic. I was on Alzheimer's medication because I just had no memory. Like my short-term memory is completely gone, which was bad for a guy that had a really great memory as far as learning goes early in my life. The pain was so bad that I would just hide in my movie theater at my house. And to be honest, I drink a lot to help myself sleep and make the pain go away briefly. And then the pain would just come back every day. My body was not working. I was slurring my speech. I was dragging my leg when I walked. I couldn't run. I couldn't exercise. I couldn't be around loud noises or bright lights. So you can imagine a guy who I had pride in my physical abilities and my fitness level to go from level 10 to really not functioning. And I had, really delayed cognitive function, and the thought process was really retarded. It was slow in my brain. My thought wasn't A to B, it was A to F to L to B, and it would just be really weird because I would know that I know things, but I couldn't communicate it. And you could imagine what that's like. It's embarrassing, and I didn't want people to see me as bad as I was, and I didn't want people to feel sorry for me or whatever. So I really didn't tell anybody about how really bad it had gotten. Even some of my best friends were like, dude, I thought you were busy. I didn't see you for a couple of years. And the scariest part for me was when I was at the end of my 3 years at the Mayo Clinic. That's 2 to 3 days a week with cognitive function, vestibular rehab, pain therapy, blah, 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 blah. They had me on Adderall, the Ambien to sleep because I couldn't sleep after the Adderall, the Alzheimer's medication, and then the pain medication. It was my body was what's going on? So, and these are from the best doctors in the whole world. So when they're telling you, hey, we've kind of done all we can for you, and you're just going to have permanent disabilities, Dave. This is what happens with head injuries, and it's just the way it is. I just started crying. I'm like, dude, I'm 37 years old now after 2 or 3 years there. And I'm like, what am I going to do the rest of my life? Because I wasn't operating at all at a very high level. Now we'll get back to the business side of things. I had 5 multi-million-dollar properties in 3 countries. And I'm like, how the frick am I going to figure this out when I can't even read a real estate contract, which, I had been lucky. My timing was really good in Vancouver. I had oceanfront penthouses and, all that, and Boston and Cabo and Phoenix, and, it was really nice setup I had. But I mean, I had renters, I had luxury property stuff going on and all this stuff and like millions of dollars at stake. And my brain just was not working. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So I didn't want to lose everything. So I hired a life coach. I did everything totally backwards. I hired a life coach first. I think I paid him $10,000 at the time. And he was associated with Tony Robbins group. And I just said, look, I need you to watch my back as I start to consolidate some of these properties because like my head's just not working and I'm afraid I'm going to screw up. No joke. I bought this massive estate, which I'm living in now. I actually might have just sold it right before the call. So that's good. That's a nice little win. But I did this huge renovation on it, like $1 million renovation on this property. It's 10,000 square feet and it's got waterfalls and koi ponds. It's really beautiful. But I remember I walked down and I gave the guy a check for $75,000. He was rebuilding the koi pond and all the waterfalls and everything. And he just looked at me and he's like, hey, Dave, you paid me yesterday. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, wow. That's the kind of stuff that was going on in my life. You know what I mean? And like, that's embarrassing for me to tell you guys, but it's the reality of where my brain was at the time and how it's just broken. Like, I just couldn't remember. I had to document everything so that I could reread it. I carried a notepad around with me just to remember what the hell is going on. Literally, it was so bad that like, this is a true life example. I was, my wife said, Dave, you need to go up to the grocery store. We need eggs, bananas, and milk. And I'm like, okay. So I drive up to the grocery store and I stop outside the grocery store and I'm like, what am I here for? So then I'm like, I call her. She says, Dave, you know, bananas, eggs, and milk. I'm like, okay, great. So I'm like, bananas, eggs, and milk, bananas, eggs, and milk. And I'm walking through the store. I'm walking down the aisles and then it's just gone again. And I'm like, what? So I call her again. I'm like, hey, what was that again? And she's like, this is my wife. Like, could you imagine being married to somebody like that? And it was like scary because I'm like, it's only going to get worse as I get older. So fast forward, I do the stuff at the Mayo Clinic. I get maybe like, 5% or 10% improvement in different areas, but nothing really major. And then, I'm screaming at God. I'm like, I know you're real. Why are you abandoning me and stuff, And I'm crying and I'm like, I don't know if I can function another 50 years like this. When my life coach asked me what I'd like to do if or when I ever get better, I just said, I want to help people. I said, I want to help people out of this suffering, pain, and to never have to feel as bad as I'm feeling right now, because it didn't seem like there's a way out other than to like probably end my life for real. And I'm like, I would never do that to my kids or my wife, but I was in so much pain and I actually felt like that would help alleviate the stress that I'm putting on her and my kids trying to babysit me. I don't know, it's screwed up thinking, but you hear about these guys doing crazy stuff. Like, I kind of get it because I was like near that point. And, it's scary for me to even talk about that because that was like stuff that was running through my head. So the guy tells me, you got to go to this leadership training. It's one of Tony Robbins things. And like, it's in San Diego. And I'm praying and crying while I'm driving to San Diego. It's the first time I've been like driving for like a long distance. I pull over on the side of the road in a gas station to sleep twice because it's like so stressful for me. Like it's brutal to think that I was that bad. I end up getting there. I show up. Tony Robbins doesn't do leadership. It's one of his programs, but he doesn't even go there. So I'm like pissed off because Tony's not there. And then this guy, Scott Humphreys, recognizes me. He's from Vancouver. And he's like, Dave, you play with the Canucks, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, how are you doing? I'm like, not very good, Scott. Not very good. I need a miracle. And I was praying, driving there. I said, God, I need a miracle. Otherwise, I think this might be the end of the road. And I had two miracles happen that event. One to do with masks and armor and removing that. And I had so much armor covering me up because I was so damaged and so hurt. I just felt like I was going to take another shot or that I was going to get hurt again. Plus a bunch of shit from my childhood. Sorry, I don't mean to curse, but there's all these things stacked up. And I truly believe that all of us do this to some extent, that if something hurts really bad, we'll be like, whoa, what was that? Like, let's not put ourselves out there again, because that was really scary. This girl broke my heart, or this happened to me, or this happened to me. And then like you stack 30 something years of that on there. And then you're walking around like this killer that I could fight anybody. I could run through this wall and not feel a thing, but I couldn't feel a thing. Like nothing. I was numb. The version of me that was walking around, this injured, no identity. I didn't know who I was. I wasn't a hockey player anymore. So what was I? Normally I'd say, well, I'm an investor, I'm an entrepreneur, but like I literally wasn't that, because I couldn't even function. So I was a waste of skin in my mind. It's sad to even hear myself say these things. So I had the miracles. And then at one point, the second one was re-identifying with the purest version of my soul. And I went back in time to like when I was 5 years old, when I trusted everyone and trusted, I loved nature and animals, and I just wanted to help people. That was like, and I fast forward to when I was 37 and broken and damaged and struggling, and I'm like, I couldn't even connect the two. It seemed like it was like another person living this life. So I removed all the armor. I got rid of all the stuff, all the masks, all the protective layers. And then I let little 5-year-old David, oh, this is trippy. So this is actually the vision that I had when I was doing this process. And that's the little guy, 5 years old.
Wow.
And I was just Superman. And my dad was holding me by my legs. And I just felt like anything was possible, right? And I trusted everyone and everything. And I thought life was about that. And then I'm like, look at who I was during this event. I'm like, where is this little guy? And I covered him up with so much stuff, so much armor, because he couldn't go do those things that I had to do for years, like fighting everybody and hitting and playing physical and being fearless and never feeling pain and never complaining and showing up. And you're like, you got to kind of become like a soldier to play at the top level in these leagues. Like they don't have time to worry about your feelings. Like you turn your feelings off, which is kind of screwed up, right? So the second that I did that, I just got all this love and all this grace and all this healing just poured over my body. And I was literally just like goosebumps everywhere. I just started bawling, and this heat wave just went like over my whole body. And the God that I saw during my near-death experience just smothered me with love and grace. And I just softened, and all this tightness that I'd had for so many years, it just melted away. And I was like free. And I'm like, oh my goodness. So then I made a promise that I was just going to let this little guy, David, lead the way and just trust him and be completely naked and vulnerable and exposed and really just be like completely authentic and real with people. And then as soon as I did that, I just started to be able to like know things, and I could see things in the future, and I could understand where people were at. I could feel where people's energies were. And it was like, all of a sudden I started to tune into all this different stuff that was like, I think partly because of my accident, I have a hypersensitivity to energy and where people are at and intuition and things like that. So, I started chasing Tony around for 2 years. I was a platinum partner with him. I traveled the whole world. He introduced me to healers and monks and shaman and grand masters all over the world. And I just stroking checks, investing in these guys, going like, fix me, because the other guys couldn't. So, you guys are a business channel. I'll just tell you like real numbers, like to heal, that was about $700,000 between Tony and then everybody else that I was like investing in to work with me. And I knew after that I had that miracle that I was going to heal. And then the crazy thing is, at the same event, I'm brushing my teeth, and it's like God's communicating to me through my own eyes, and he's talking to me. And it was like so beautiful. And it was almost like the sadness. And the message was, I'm so sorry that I had to make you suffer like that darkly and deeply and for that length of time. But the only way that you would be able to help these people that are going to come across your path is if you truly understood the fear and the depression and the anxiety and not having a future, and go into that darkness and live there and understand it so strongly that you can show people how to get out of that and how to get back into the light is the message that I got. And that day I decided to start helping people, and my life has never been the same. And it's truly magical what has happened in my life and in other people's lives. And I truly believe the second go around for me is me just living like my calling and what I'm really here for. And that the hockey was great and it set me up for life and all that, so that I could really do this like unencumbered and to have a stage to speak from. So, you know, the thing that was the worst thing in my life, the injuries, the fifth concussion and all that, has truly become like the greatest thing in my life.
Yeah.
And a blessing. So it's pretty trippy to kind of go through all that and think about all that.
Yeah, Dave, thank you so much for sharing your journey. So much more to you than just the ice hockey player that people love. And that's, you know, really the whole point of the game plan, is to get in there and explore that journey. And, you know, the one thing that a lot of things stuck out to me, but one thing I kind of grabbed onto was, as you were coming out of your treatment therapy at the Mayo Clinic, and then again, when you decided to go down to San Diego for this seminar, it seems, you know, both those instances, it's where the life coach came into play, right? And now here you are as a life coach, building all-star coaching. And you said it, you spent almost $1 million, you know, along that path. How is someone like our listener supposed to think about it and maybe identify a life coach, or even understand, you know, maybe not why they need it? I think that part can be obvious sometimes, but, you know, what purpose it can fulfill, and like how to seek out the right fit for them.
Well, if you look at all the best players in the world, right? The Jordan Spieths, the Michael Jordans, the LeBrons, like they all had coaches, and they had like strength training coaches. They had Phil Jackson. They had like, you know, everybody. Wayne Gretzky had, you know, all his coaches. Wayne Gretzky was one of my coaches. Like, you know, people have mentors and coaches in their lives as they go. And listen, you could grind it out and struggle yourself for years and years and years trying to like figure out the plan. But I've learned over time that investing in somebody that has already done the thing that you're trying to do will speed it up light years and save you tons of headaches and just show you the most efficient way to go. So like, for example, let's say you want to go to climb Mount Everest. Well, you could try to go up there yourself, but would you?
Not alone.
No, you're going to hire the Sherpa that's been up there 10,000 times and helped everybody else get up to the top. So like, why do people want to climb these huge mountains and set these huge goals and then just try to like go like, well, I'll figure it out like one step at a time? Listen, go find out who's doing the thing that you want to do and either model them, hire them, or get around them and add value to them so that you can help them, and it'll be a win-win. Like everything in all-star coaching has to do with win-win-win. And I like to look at it like I'm going to help the client, the client's going to help me, and we're going to help humanity together, because it's like we're setting it up so the game is winnable for everybody. And when I got out of my own way, and it wasn't about Dave Scatchard anymore, it completely changed my life, because everything I do is to serve. So if I'm leading with that, right, the challenge is free, 7 days. Like it's intense, dude. I spend like freaking, well, I mean, you guys are business station. I'm going to spend between $50,000 and $100,000 in ad spend, okay, to bring these people into this program. We're going to have thousands and thousands of people. We're going to change thousands and thousands of lives, okay? If I make that up on the back end and people want to move forward with me later, cool. But I don't really give a shit about that. I don't. This is like about serving humanity, and to be like, listen, man, it's like, this is what I'm supposed to do. I was sitting here during COVID, and I went out, I walked around by my pool, and the energy around everything had just been so bad. And I'm just like, what's going on here? And I hear this, like, I get these like messages, right? And it's like, Dave, are you going to do something? And I'm like, I'm like looking around. I'm like, do what? What am I supposed to do? And he's like, you know what to do. And at the time, I was only working with one-on-one clients, athletes, entertainers, like cool, people that are paying big bucks. And it's like, I was kind of like ninja. People didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't really brand out or anything. I was just doing my thing. And we have 7-figure wins with people. That's why they kept banging on my door. I wasn't even marketing or anything, like zero. And then I get this message and I'm like, what? What am I supposed to do? You know what to do. So I started gathering everything that I learned over the last decade, traveling the world, learning from all these cool people. And I'm like, what if I just blended it all in a blender, plus all my experiences about earning these jerseys behind me? And what if I brought that to people and just gave it to them? And I had no sales plan. I was literally 4 days into this 7-day challenge, and I was building it as I was going, and I was so scared, and I didn't know how to do it. But here's one thing that I teach is like, as I create this bigger gap to this bigger vision that's not about me and it's about humanity, the organizing intelligence and God and the divine and the universe just fill it for me. It knows it's good. It knows it's like gonna bring light. So I don't even know how it's gonna work half the time. I just hit record and I go, and like magic happens. And like literally, I was so scared the first day because like I was like shaking in my boots. I'm like praying. I'm like, God, just use me, just speak through me. Like, let's go. And people were like freaking out after the first day. So I'm like, okay, that was good. Let's do more of that. So I was building it each day, and I had a day off in between. So I was building the challenge. And this is like 4 challenges ago. This is 10,000 people ago. Okay. Now, the funny thing is I got to day 4 and people were like, hey, I don't want this to end. It's over in like less than a week. And I'm like, I don't know. Do you guys want to keep going? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, I guess I got to create a group coaching program now. So I started selling. I took all of my main programs and I just gave them away as bonuses and let people like keep coming with me for like, it was cheap, like a few $100. Okay. But it started to cover my ad costs. And then I'm like, oh, this works out for everybody. It's a win-win-win, right? So that was 10,000 people ago, and we're doing it again. And we just keep getting bigger and bigger. And I have a blast. I have people from all different walks of life, all different shapes, sizes, sexual preferences, religions. It doesn't matter. It's like everybody's welcome. And it's so beautiful. And our group, even like our little Facebook group, like I was looking today, we have 4,000 people in there right now. And they are just pure, like, light and supportive. And we've only removed 2 people out of that group since we started. And everyone just cheers each other on. It's like a nice place for everybody to land. So sorry to keep rambling, but I just get really excited.
No, Dave. It's interesting. I mean, as you were sort of sharing that story, I was reminded of a quote that an investor had, which he said, I love investing in accidental businesses. And, really the sense of that is people are drawn to authenticity. Customers, before you even call them customers, are drawn to authenticity. And, nobody can doubt, as you're sharing your story, that this is what you are here to do. This is what you want to do and put out into the world every day. And when people see that and they're like, this guy is 100% about this right now, then they don't even come in there with a sense of I'm, being sold a product or I'm here to buy something. They're here for you. They're here for your authenticity. And then at some point they realize, you know what, actually Dave might be able to help me and let me see if it's worth being a part of it. So I think the idea of that accidental business is actually a lot more powerful than entrepreneurs give it credit for.
1,000%. And the authenticity piece, like I do surveys at the end of every challenge just to try to see where I could get better and stuff. And I'm like, what's your favorite part about like the challenge? And I think it'd be like a technical skill or $1 million nugget I drop on them or whatever. And it's like Dave's energy and honesty and vulnerability. Because then when the leader can be honest and vulnerable and open, it gives everyone else permission to like do the same. And like, let's just deal with reality. Like, how much stuff do you think runs our lives right now that's not our stuff? That we were told from a parent or a teacher or a grandparent or a pastor or whatever, this is how life is. So everyone goes around and they're running the rat race and they're like, man, this is weird. I thought there'd be way more to this like life than what I'm really dealing with. And then when we start to show them this whole other world that's like possible that we design, that's the whole point of the challenge, is to like redesign your whole thing. What matters to you? What do you want to do the rest of your life? What's your purpose here? Like, how can we have fun doing, like, ask me if I have fun when I do this job. Like, I freaking love it. I do it for free. Like, that's the thing. It's like, it doesn't feel like work when the energy is just flowing. And I believe that when you're in alignment, right, that's really important for everything that I do. I want to be in authenticity, in reality, and in alignment. And my reality, not society's reality that they're trying to create for me. It just breaks my heart, some of the rules that people think that they have to live by. It's like devastating, and it stops them in their tracks. Like, well, you can't do that. What do you mean? No, Dave, you can't do that. You can't give a free challenge. You'll just get slaughtered. You're just throwing your money away. I don't care, man. It's like, I feel like I'm supposed to do this. And then it works out. And they're like, how did you do that? I'm like, I don't know, but I just did it. It's so fun. It's not work. It's like joy. And it's so funny. In 2015, I was trying to like recreate myself because I was getting there. I was starting to get the momentum going. And I'm like, what do I want? What's my mission statement? And I truly wrote, and I fought with this for a long time, but I wrote, I want to be an extraordinary ambassador of love and light. It had nothing to do with money. It had nothing to do with like business. It had nothing to do with like, but I thought if I could be an extraordinary ambassador of love and light, then like everybody around me is going to be really happy and that'll make me happy. So like we're all winning. And it's like a pretty simple formula. I didn't have to go change the whole world. I just got to be like the light that I got to see when I was in heaven. So yeah, one of the messages that God gave me before I came back was like, Dave, I said, do you want me to sell all my stuff and go on a mission trip? Like, and I didn't grow up with any church, Tim, like nothing. Like I never went to church ever. And then here I'm like talking all this interesting talk. But the message to me was, why don't you take this unbound, unending, unconditional love and grace and happiness and joy that you feel here and take that back and shine that into the lights, into the eyes of everyone that you come across. Just treat them all like they're your brother, your sister. And I'm like, what else? I'm like, that's it. like that was like the big secret to life.
So Dave, help us understand, so you have this unbelievable calling and it's so pure and it's so clear, but how do you take that and then transform it into something that could be distributed, via tools? The website doesn't just create itself, or the programming doesn't just create itself. So what was some of the learning curve for you as you scaled up your enterprise, and how did you overcome some of those more business or operational challenges? Yeah,
it's a great question. So I was a one-man show. I was like bootstrapping everything, but I thought I could do it all. This is why I'm talking about the coaching and the scaling piece, how fast and important it is. So, we were, it's just me and a part-time assistant who used to be my nanny for my kids, like legitimately. And I'm starting to run these like thousands and thousands of people challenge, and we're both like not sleeping, and we're both like freaking answering emails and customer support and like trying to get everybody logged in, and Zoom's uploaded and the hub built and all the PDFs made. Like it was insane. And Alex Sharpin, I watched him speak on a summit that I spoke on, and he said a really interesting thing. He said, your business can only scale as big as the systems and processes you have put in for it. I thought that was like really cool, because I'm like, shoot, I need some more systems and processes and more people. So as I've hired out, right? Like I hired Russell Brunson for 2CCX, I work with a bunch of different coaches. Some of my coaches just doing stuff with Tony and Dean and Russell down in Florida last week. Like I'm still continuing. I have 4 coaches right now myself in every different category: marketing, spirituality, energy. Like I'm just constantly learning, and these aren't cheap, but these guys have already reached a level that I'm trying to get to. And I believe that they can fast track me, and everything is about leveraging my time and my resources to free me up so that I can scale and I can just keep presenting. I just love being in front of people and love sharing all these cool things I've learned along the way. So moving forward, I'm still trying to do it. I just hired 3 coaches underneath me. I got myself and an assistant, but I'm looking at 3 VAs right now that I need to bring in to help implement some of this onboarding stuff that we're doing, because we have so many people. So Yeah.
I am curious about the challenges themselves and, the sort of breadth of people that come to the challenges. Because it's always interesting to me, right? Like, as you mentioned, there are folks in all different walks of life. They're all different. You could be a marketer, you could be in sales, you could be a technologist, and you need coaching for whatever it is that you are doing. So when you look at the challenges that you are working on, are they customized for, where that person is in their life? Is it pretty standardized at a certain level and then they specialize over time? I'm curious about what the challenges actually look like. Let's say if I was to join your next one.
Sure. So I would coach on the fundamentals in each category. So we work on love and relationship, big money mindset, health. We end on spirituality, creator connection. And then in the middle of that, we're working on a new operating system or old operating system. So what we do is we take all that old programming that's not really working, and whatever we don't need, we dump it. It's a big dump, we call it. And then we try to create this new operating system based on these magical champion moments that we've had in our lives. And I get everybody to go through these different processes and take them through this psychological process, basically that's an emotional flood. And I'm getting them to go back into time and to relive these magical moments or these champion moments in their life to the point where they're knowing how they're standing. It's basically their triad. So what they're focusing on, what they're saying to themselves, and what's happening with their body. And that is your individual. You're doing that for yourself, right? So you're going to kind of see the difference between your old operating system and your new one. You're like, whoa, I haven't been with this guy for a while. Like, it's been a while since I've been strutting around. It's been a while since I was just confident and knew I had it. Like, listen to this. Literally, it's standing right here, so it might be meant to be. But this is like the first time that I ever did this with these. I work with this financial team that just finished second in the world or the country. And these are their new operating systems. But when things are going well, the heads up, there's a big presence. People can feel my energy. I'm laser focused. I feel like a champion. I'm happy. I'm high. I'm pumped up. I'm playful. My hands are up. My hands are high. Strong body, flowing, peacock, chest out, confident. You guys get it? Like, that's some of the physiology that's going on. The laser focus on specific goals and objectives. Easy. It's not even work. I'm taking massive action. I'm just doing it. I can't miss. I have high energy. It's relentless, right? The same group. Listen to this stuff. This is their old operating system, okay? These guys are ballers. These guys are killing it. But listen to this. This is stressed out, overworked, uncomfortable in my own skin, a failure, unmotivated, withdrawn, closed off, alone, stuck, unhappy. These are the same guys like 2 or 3 weeks before that were coming to me and they were sharing this stuff. Physiology, no eye contact, frowning, weak, wringing hands, stuff it down, hold it inside, bad posture, moping around the house. Like, you can see like the difference, like, instantly. So what I do is we create these whole new, from the old operating system to the new operating system, and really just have people embody this new operating system, and we anchor that in. And we anchor it in for the 7 days to the point when they leave here, they're strutting around like they're going to be world beaters. And it's
almost the exercise of, I think, like, intentionality, right? Which is, I think, look, you can apply that to somebody who's putting together a product roadmap for their company, where they're sitting there, and if you actually get all the executives in the company in the room together, and you say, okay, we're not leaving this room until we come up with a product roadmap, then they're going to do it. If you ask people to do it off and on, right, and you see this with a lot of companies, people keep putting it off. They don't look at it, and you're still going with the old instructions. And yeah, you're taking that alignment and bringing it to a person as opposed to, let's say, a product.
Totally. But what I think the piece that's missing for what you're saying is that if those old patterns are still running, you're going to have the fallback, right? Like 2 steps forward, 1 step back, because this old stuff hasn't been dumped. It hasn't been removed from the system. So it's like, you've got this backpack that you're using for all your old operating system stuff. And it's like, okay, this girl broke my heart, so I'm never going to put myself all the way out there again. And I don't know why I'm using this example, but you're going out there and then you're dating all these people and they're like, man, he's really good, but he's just a little closed up. I wonder why. And then they're trying to like poke and prod and get in there. And you're like, that's about as far as I'm going to let this one go, because that last one that broke my heart, I don't ever want to feel that sad or that lonely or heartbroken ever again. So I'm going to give them most of it, but I'm not going to give them all of it. Well, run that out over time and over years. And that whole thing just kind of like, it's like a polluted system. The ecosystem's not clean. So anyways, I love the removing that old operating system completely. It's like we're deleting it. We're just bringing in this new operating system that's nice and clean and fresh and designed with purpose. And it's on purpose. This behavior, these emotions, these thoughts, this focus, I have them tape it beside their mirror, beside their bed, in their car. Like, it's like real for them. And after a while, they'll catch themselves when they're dropping back into an old operating system pattern. They're like, oh, that's so weird. Like, I never even knew that I used to do that so much. Even the language that we use in ourselves, like, I used to be the worst. Like, I would really beat myself up. And now it's like, think about this. Like, those terrible things that you say to yourself sometimes, like, Dave, you're such an idiot. Like, how could you make that mistake? Like, I would never be friends with somebody that talked to me like that, like, ever. So why do we make it okay for us to talk to ourselves like that? It's crazy.
Dave, how much of that inner critic drove you to the level of success that you had as an athlete?
I think that the critic didn't really do it, but it was the other guy that was fighting the critic, that was fighting for the belief that I could make it when everyone else told me I'd never make it. It was almost like there was this battle inside me, the good guy and the good boys and the bad boys. And if I let this bad boys, if I listened to that, it would say, what, do you think you can make the NHL? Like, 1 in a million kids make it. Like, there's 7 billion people on the planet and 723 people get a job. How do you think that you're going to do that? If I would have listened to that voice, it would never have happened. And this voice is like, come on, man, I think you can do this. Like, just outwork everybody, just out hustle everybody. Like, if I put in this time now when it's raining, when it's snowing, and I'm out in my backyard shooting pucks, nobody else that I know is doing this right now. So I'm getting ahead. So it was never a layup for me. I fought for my whole career. I fought for everything that I ever did. And it's like, I never really took my foot off the gas because I was afraid of like losing it all. So this guy that's like, hey, come on, buddy, you got this. You can do this. Oh yeah, you're doing it. Like, that's the guy that got me through. So the self-critic would maybe make me hold me accountable and point out things that I would have to like, either am I going to listen to that and go that way? Or am I just going to like say, no, like, I got this, you know?
Yeah. And also you're so different now. And so I think it could be fair to say, maybe not with you, but others, or, I've even experienced this myself. Sometimes that negative voice is what motivates you. It is what drives you because you want to prove it wrong. But it's actually then it becomes difficult to release the negative, to say, I don't have a need for negativity anymore. And that's, to me, that seems more like what the unlock has been, is I actually don't need the negative driver to push me because I have this positive driver deep within me, and I can let that positive driver lead versus being pushed by a negative force.
I love it. Yeah. And we overvalue the negative sometimes. Be like, well, I'm my own worst critic, so it doesn't matter what anybody else says to me. Well, you can say that, but I think it's a waste of energy arguing with that negative self-talk. I mean, it's just like, I'm really all about efficient ecological use of energy. And if something's not working, we need to bring more energy to that system. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, if your relationship's struggling, we need to bring some more energy and coherence to that relationship. If your job's struggling, we need to figure it out. We need to bring more energy there and more focus. A lot of what I'm really teaching right now is that energy is so diffuse when people are trying to do so many things, and shiny object syndrome and phones going off and kids and jobs and responsibilities and this and that and the other thing. And it's like, if you're going to move a mountain, if you're going to move a boulder up a mountain, like, you need to focus all your energy to get that thing rolling up the mountain. Otherwise, it's going to roll back over you. So you're going to focus everything you got to get it up there. But you can't fire. If God gave you 100 units of energy today, Tim, and said, do something great with it, you're like, well, I think I'll spend 5 over here and 5 over there and 10 over there and 6 over there and 7 over there and 12 over there and 9 over there and 3. Like, what? Nothing great really happened. You're kind of just like balancing, like just like maintaining. But if you went 85 units of energy at this one thing, there's a good chance that that's going to force it. That's going to bump it. That's going to get some energy going in that. And that's how the crazy part is. I don't know any other coaches who are doing all the energy dynamics, the spiritual dynamics, and then the strategic like business dynamics, along with a coaching, like a hockey background of that performance-based drive. It's kind of like a unique thing. And that's kind of why we're getting known as this like quick transformation. It's not like therapy when somebody's in there for like years and years. This is like 7 training sessions. People are like completely different human beings. I'm like, this is wild. So fun.
It is interesting, Dave. You know, you mentioned the point that before you started doing some of these larger seminars, you were doing one-on-one work, especially with you know, previous athletes, with celebrity talent, like high performers, right? Let's just sort of broadly say.
Mm-hmm.
And as you were sort of talking about this idea of dedicating your energy towards one task or a select number of tasks versus spreading it out, I am curious if there are other signals or other markers that you see common across high performers, regardless of the field, that you feel like the folks that you have worked with or the folks that you have, you know, seen around you and admired, they all do the same thing regardless of whatever they're high performing.
The highest performers that I know are comfortable with uncertainty. They're okay living on the edge of chaos where it might not work, and they're okay with failing. Like they don't even look at it as failing. They're looking at it like, okay, this is testing, or this is like learning. They either learn or they win, but they never fail. I never hear them talk about failure. They're like, yeah, we tried to run this thing and it didn't work, so we switched over to here. Like it's like no big deal. Where other people just won't move because they're like, I don't want somebody to judge me or pick me apart or make fun of me. Like, trust me, when I got into this coaching game, I'm like, what are people going to think? Like, who does he think why does he think he can coach out of all the people? And why are people going to pay this guy lots of money? Because I get paid very well. Why are they going to pay this guy all this money to give them advice? Why is a business that's doing $2 million a month going to hire me to come in and work with their company? Like how does that line up? But this is the cool thing is I don't even really need to know the day-to-day of the business. I need to know the energetics of the business and then the different systems that are operating. And if you've got like a drain, like I'm really good at spotting the weak point and plugging it and rebuilding that and really focusing the different energy dynamics in the different parts of the business to drive it. And part of that comes from day one when I sit down with a company or business or an individual. I'll say like, let's dump it all out. Let's see what you got. One of my first clients thought he was going to go bankrupt for the second time in his life, and he had 4 kids going through a divorce. He does this dump onto my table, tears, and like he's like, I'm going to lose it all again. And I started looking at all the real estate he had, and then we ended up doing this 1031 exchange on this key property that he didn't want to really sell and thought he was going to get taxed a ton of money and whatever. He went from like thinking he's going bankrupt to $1.3 million in his jeans. And at the time, like he was my first real business sort of client because I was only helping athletes at the time. And he went and told everybody what I did. So that's how my business started. Is I had all these other guys go, hey, do the same thing for me. Do the same thing for me. So sometimes we can't see our blind spots. Sometimes we're so in it that we can't see the obvious choice is just outside of our periphery because we're like hustling and we're in the zone and there's all these like little options and opportunities. We're like, what if you did that? Or what if you tweaked that? Or do you want to try that? And it's sometimes as simple as like an aha moment going like, holy smokes. I didn't even think that was an option. And then you're like, wow, work. It's so fun.
So Dave, you've been so generous with your energy. And you know, one thing that's really unique about you versus any of the other guests you've ever had on the game plan is really the transformation you've gone through and how you've seen the light, so to speak. And that's why I'm excited to ask you this question we ask all of our guests, because I think your answer could be a little bit different. And it's about what advice you would give your younger self with everything that you know now.
I would tell myself to not be so hard on myself and know that I'd be guided my entire life and that I'm more special and more powerful than I could ever possibly imagine. And that there's so much more going on that's bigger than me. That it's really just my responsibility to show up, have fun, and bring energy and light and love. Like that's it.
Wow. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. I wish I would have had more fun, especially during my NHL career. I was so nervous and worried about losing my job. And like, you think you've got these guaranteed contracts and you're in the NHL and you led the team in goals the year before. And yet I'm still having sleepless nights worrying that like, I'm going to somehow get sent down or traded or whatever. And it's like, I probably would have performed better if I could have just let that go and be free and not worried if I didn't eat perfectly or if I didn't get enough rest during my pregame nap, or that, we're in all these amazing cities and like, I would just try to like be on bed on time and do everything like perfectly. And that's part of being a pro. I'm not saying that there's like a relaxation that some guys had, like McGillney, and like, I mean, he just loved life and had fun and he was relaxed. And I mean, he was a superstar. So maybe it's a little different for him, but I did have fun, but I was pretty focused, and I think I needed to be that way to a certain extent, but not cover up all the best parts of me that were just really kind of like open and happy and free. Yes.
Yeah. Well, Dave, we want to thank you again so much for joining us today on The Game Plan, for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your energy, and just for being so honest and vulnerable with us. We're excited to keep in touch with you and to see the growth of All-Star Coaching as you grow this business out.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really enjoyed chatting with you guys, and good luck to both of you. And I love what you're doing with everybody. So good luck and keep it going.